Hello, I'm Corey Wells, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. Co-president Bonnie Black and I are pleased to welcome you to this candidate forum sponsored by the League in partnership with Rutherford County TV. The League believes that candidate forums provide an excellent format for voters to become more familiar with the candidates and their positions. We appreciate the support from Rutherford County government provided by Brian Robertson, CIO at the Office of Information Technology, and Lee Harris at RCTV. They and their staff enable broadcasting and streaming of our forums to reach a much larger number of voters. The League seeks to conduct our forums in a nonpartisan manner. Key participants, especially the moderator, are not publicly aligned with any candidate. We are pleased to have Dr. Molly Taylor Pileski as moderator for the following forum. Dr. Taylor Pileski serves on the faculty of the Department of History at MTSU. In the upcoming special election, you will be voting for the state senator in District 14. Early voting starts February 21st and runs through March 8th at your choice of 3 locations. In a process that's new this year and implemented by the Rutherford County Election Commission to increase voter convenience, on Election Day itself, that's March 13th, you'll be able to vote at any one of 13 voting centers in District 14. To check your Senate district and to learn more about voting locations and specific times, visit election.rutherfordcountytn.gov. You can also now check your voter registration status and register online at govotetn.com. We thank you for your attention as you hear these candidates introduce themselves and answer questions about pertinent issues facing our county and the state of Tennessee. We hope you find this forum useful in deciding the candidates you choose to support. Remember, your vote gives you a prime opportunity to influence how government is conducted in our state. Please make your decision known by voting. Watching world events makes us appreciate the democracy and the vital part citizen participation plays in that democracy. Your vote counts. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm Molly Taylor Pileski, and I will serve as moderator for this forum tonight. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, and the Rutherford County Office of Information Technology. It's my pleasure to welcome both our audience here at the County Courthouse and our viewers at home to our program. Tonight, we will be hearing remarks from the candidates for State Senate District 14. Before introducing the candidates, I would like to outline the procedure for the forum. Each candidate will be asked to make an opening statement in a 2-minute period. When both candidates have completed the opening statement, then several questions will be asked. The candidates will respond to each of these questions with a 1-minute answer. The candidates will be allowed a 2-minute answer to the final question and to make any closing remarks. First, I'll begin by introducing the candidates. They are seeking election to a position that is important for the citizens of Rutherford County. I want to thank them for their gracious acceptance of this invitation to participate in this event. Speaking first is Gail Jordan. Ms. Jordan, you may make your opening statement. You'll have 2 minutes.
I've been a resident of Rutherford County most of my adult life. I raised my 4 children on the hard work and fresh air of farm life, and they're graduates of Tennessee Public Schools. They're also college graduates and successful professionals in their field. I was a stay-at-home mom until my children began to leave for college, when I decided to pursue my long-held dream of attending law school. I graduated in 2015, passed the bar, and now I work as a mediator at a nonprofit. As to my hobbies, I was president of Murfreesboro Soccer Club in the 10 years when we developed and opened Siegel Soccer Park. To celebrate my 50th birthday, I trained for and competed in an Ironman triathlon. I'm also the executive director of Recovering from Religion, a nonprofit that provides hope, healing, support, and community to those struggling with doubt and non-belief. My vision for District 14 provides compensating our teachers with higher wages and actual tangible benefits while eliminating unnecessary student testing. It provides for health care for thousands of our working folks, including veterans, providing them compassionate care and saving our rural hospitals. It provides for infrastructure that's far more than safe roads and bridges and includes broadband in our rural areas. And it provides for addressing our opioid addiction problem by destigmatizing treatment, holding the pharmaceutical industry accountable, and legalizing cannabis. When asked how I would govern, I have a simple three-question test. Is it rational? Does this legislation address an identified problem in the state of Tennessee? Is it reasonable? Is this the best use of your tax dollars and mine? And is it right? Does this legislation do the most good for the most number of people and the least amount of damage to the least number of people? Thank you.
Mr. Reeves, you may make your opening statement. You will have 2 minutes.
Thanks to the League of Women Voters for having this. Thanks for this great crowd here tonight. Thanks to all those who are watching on the television tonight. Thanks to my opponent for the debate tonight. I'm a 7th generation Tennessean. My great-great-great-great-grandfather moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee in 1780. The Reeveses have been here a really long time. My family's been practicing pharmacy in Rutherford County for 120 years, many of those years right here around the square. My family and my business roots run deep in Rutherford County in Middle Tennessee. I feel very blessed to live and to work here. I've been married to my wife for 21 years. We have 3 great kids, Will, Jack, and Emma White. I went to MTSU to undergrad, go Blue Raiders. I went to the University of Tennessee Pharmacy School, graduated in 1994. Right out of school, I came back, and a former partner of mine, Rick Sane, and I bought my dad out of the pharmacy business, and we formed a little company called Reeves Sane Drugstore here in Murfreesboro, where we employed a number of people over the years. Recently have started another pharmacy company called 12 Stone Health Partners. I am a conservative, Republican, pro-life, pro-conservative, pro-Second Amendment Republican that has never served a day in my life in public office. My 5 core values are faith and family and career and service and health. And I'll tell you why I want to run. When I was about 12 years old, my dad ran for city council and eventually became mayor of Murfreesboro. And I've been around public service my whole entire life, and I saw firsthand from my dad the sacrifice and the difference you can make in the lives of people by serving in public office. So when I got out of school, I knew almost immediately that I wanted to run for office, but the timing wasn't right. And I got some great advice from my dad. He said, you know, make your way in the private sector. Get married, have some kids, open a business, pay some taxes, give back to your church, give back to your community, and when the timing's right, you will know. I feel like the timing is right. I have the right background, the right capabilities, and the right passion to be your state senator, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you. We'll now turn to the questions. The first question will be answered by Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves, what makes you the candidate to vote for?
Well, I think it's a few things. One, my background. I've spent my entire life in the business sector. I've spent my life solving problems. I've spent my life being innovative. And I just think taking a common sense business approach to serve in office, specifically at the state legislature, is what we need nowadays. We need less career politicians and more people who just have got common sense business backgrounds in the private sector that can go and take a look at a lot of the issues that we're facing in the state, like the opiate crisis. There's no question about it that day one, that's something that I can move the dial in, considering I've spent my whole entire life in pharmacy and business. So I just feel like my background and capabilities position me to really make a difference.
Jordan, same question. What makes you the candidate to vote for? And you have 1 minute to answer.
As I said, I've spent most of my adult life here in Rutherford County and sent my children to public school. I raised those children on a farm. I know what life is like. I think that we have gotten out of balance here in Tennessee. I think that anytime we are directed by one party, I think we have a loss. I think there are so many voices that are not being heard. I think there are solutions that aren't being heard because all we're hearing is one side. I attended a Board of Education meeting not long ago, and all of the representatives were Republicans. The responses given were an echo chamber, to say the least. And I think when we have a two-party system for a reason, because there are innovative, creative, new ideas, and we're not hearing any of them. And I like to think that my voice comes from the voice of the people of the District 14, and that's what qualifies me.
Next question is also for you, Ms. Reeves. Pardon me. Ms. Jordan, excuse me. Ms. Jordan, if elected, what are the top 1 or 2 things that you would like to accomplish during your term in office? And again, 1 minute.
I suppose if I had to come down on one of the most important things, our rural hospital closures have gone from being an urgency to an emergency. And the problem is there is no end in sight until we expand Medicaid. Our working folks who don't have health care go to our emergency rooms because it's the only option they have for treatment. Our rural hospitals cut staff, they cut the budget, and they eventually close. They can't, this is not a sustainable program. When we pass Medicaid and we're able to offer our insurance to our working folks, these are working folks that don't have employer-provided health care, and they're able to receive compassionate health care. I think that's probably the most important issue addressing the folks in District 14. The hospital in Bedford County is on the at-risk list, along with 30 other hospitals in Tennessee.
Mr. Reeves, same question. In 1 minute, if elected, what are your 1 or 2 priorities? What 1 or 2 things would you like to accomplish during your term?
I think if I could only focus on one thing over the course of my time in the State Senate, I would have to focus on health care. It's what I've done my entire life. I think our health care system is fragmented, it's expensive, and we just really need to take a hard look at some public-private partnerships and how can we introduce more consumerism into the health care market. We've got to find ways to drive down cost. We've got to find ways to increase competition. We've got to find ways to just continue to have great quality. And I truly believe with my experience as a businessman and my experience as a pharmacist, we can take a hard look at ways to do that, to really impact the private sector. We got a Medicaid program, we got a Medicare program, but really go after the private sector in the state of Tennessee and lead the way in the country on making a difference there. And I think I can do that.
Next question is also for you, Mr. Reeves. In 1 minute, how has your experience prepared you for the job?
How was my experience? Again, I've been in the private sector my whole entire life. I mean, 100 days ago, I was a pharmacist. So for 24 years, I have been in the private sector. I've been creating jobs. I've been making a payroll. I've been signing both sides of the payroll check. I've been investing in my community. I've been taking care of so many marginalized patients in our society. And I would argue that being a business owner is probably one of the best training grounds you can possibly have for serving in private in the public sector. So I feel like that my background as a businessman and a family man has positioned me for that.
Jordan, same question in 1 minute. How has your experience prepared you for the job?
Well, I certainly don't want to minimize being a mom of 4 kids. I had my 4 kids in 3 years, and that was a trial by fire, so to speak. But in addition to that, in my career as a mediator, I have used the skill set of communication and compromise. Often, the mediation I do sometimes is a parenting plan. Sometimes it's a victim offender program. Sometimes it's a juvenile offender program. When we enter the room and the tensions are high and everyone is so personally vested in it, and to be able to take that skill set and bring folks to a conclusion when we have a shared goal. The same thing is true for our legislature in Tennessee. We have a shared goal, but we have lost the ability to communicate. We've lost the ability to compromise, and it's my intention to take that skill set and bring what I can to the state legislature in Tennessee.
Jordan, the next question will also start with you. What do you feel is the #1 issue facing Tennessee in the next 5 years, and how would you address that issue?
We have to recognize that we have a terrible opioid addiction problem here in Tennessee. We have to address this on several levels. This is going to be a multifaceted approach. Obviously, we have to destigmatize treatment. So many of the families I've talked to in the district, that's a burden, is the stigma of treatment. The second thing we have to do is hold the pharmaceutical industry accountable for putting these dangerous and addictive drugs and promoting them on the market. The next thing we need to do is to pass Medicaid so that these folks will be able to receive the treatment that they need. And my last point is that we need to legalize cannabis. So many folks who get caught up in this addiction do so because they've had an injury. They've had a nexus to some kind of event that's led them to that. And these are such powerful and addictive drugs that we need to have alternatives to treatment for pain reduction and treatment for those injuries.
Mr. Reeves, same question, 1 minute. What do you feel is the #1 issue facing Tennessee in the next 5 years, and how do you plan to address that issue?
We absolutely have got to get the opiate crisis under control. When I first graduated pharmacy school in 1994, we didn't have all these opiates on the marketplace like we have today. And then drugs like OxyContin came into the marketplace, and early on, they were incredible blessings for people who had hospice, who had cancer, who had chronic back pain. So the drugs themselves were not actually the problem. It's over a period of time they started getting dispensed for wisdom teeth and for hip surgeries and for a number of things in great quantities, and they made their way into the marketplace. I feel like what the governor has recently proposed, a good balance of prevention and treatment and law enforcement, is exactly right. And it's got to start with prevention. We've got to have some mechanism to make sure that we're not dispensing too much of it into the marketplace, and we've got some ability to regulate it. And for people who do get addicted, let's get good treatment programs in place and not criminalize them. But no question about it, we need to go after that.
As a reminder, you still have 10 seconds after you hear the beep, so don't panic. Okay, the next question will start with you again, Mr. Reeves, and the question pertains to tax revenues. What are the central challenges that the state faces in aligning tax revenues with expenditures? And what steps would you take in the state legislature to ensure this alignment?
Well, I've always been a big believer as far as tax revenue is concerned that we need to have taxes that are really tied to consumption. That's why I always felt like the sales tax made the most sense, like the road tax that recently got passed compared to actually having an income tax. I mean, nowadays we've clearly got to fund TennCare, and we've got to fund some of the other larger projects that are being taken on as a state. But I mean, I believe we need to have an incredibly low tax state and only fund the absolute mandatory things we have to have. We have to protect the citizens. We have to provide infrastructure. We have to provide support for our most marginalized citizens. We're going to have to continue to do that, and we got to fund education. Those 4 things are just essential with our tax revenues, but we need to keep them low. We need to be conservative in how we collect and how we spend.
Ms. Jordan, same question. What are the central challenges that the state faces in aligning tax revenues with expenditures? And what steps would you take in the state legislature to ensure this alignment?
The question you asked is, how do we ensure this alignment? One of the biggest problems is that we keep hearing about our budget surplus. We've heard this over and over again, but no one in this room can say how much of a budget surplus we have. It's frustrating for the residents of District 14 when our children are meeting in portables in Bedford County, when we have unsafe roads and bridges. There's a surplus. We have no idea how much that is. Until we know what our financial picture is, it's very difficult for us to move forward and make decisions about anything. That's true with healthcare, that's true with infrastructure, that's true with education. So the very first thing that has to happen is we have to have an accurate financial picture of what exactly is meant by a budget surplus.
Ms. Jordan, the next question will also start with you. Although many health care rules are determined federally, how should the state address its role in health care related areas like Medicaid expansion?
That's the question. That's actually the question. Everyone sitting in this room has paid federal tax dollars to provide health care for the citizens of Tennessee. When the Republican supermajority refuses to bring that vote to the floor, all of those tax dollars, up to now, $3.2 billion of them, go to other states. We don't get it back. This does not add a penny to Tennessee's budget. This is money you've already paid into the federal system. When we bring that back and we expand Medicaid, 2 things happen. Number 1, our working folks get insurance and they're able to get the health care they need. They are suffering from treatable diseases like cancer, and diabetes. And the second thing that happens is that we save our rural hospitals, because this has been the only place that these folks have been able to receive treatment. So that's the most important thing we can do with health care.
Mr. Reeves, same question. Although many healthcare rules are determined federally, how should the state address its role in healthcare-related areas like Medicaid expansion?
Right. You know, I dispense prescriptions every single day to Medicaid patients, 10 care patients, every single day. When Medicaid was created, it was designed for truly marginalized patients, for children, for disabled, for the elderly. And I believe Medicaid needs to continue to be the program for those. But I do not believe it needs to be expanded beyond that. I believe we need to have some private sector solutions that address that. I mean, Obamacare has failed. I mean, everybody in this room knows people that a few years ago were paying $200 in premiums, and now they're spending $2,000 a month in premiums. It hasn't worked. Governor Phil Bredesen, when he was in office in 2005, actually did a massive carve back of TennCare because it was about to break the state. We don't need to expand it to that level again. We need to let Medicaid be what Medicaid is, and let's find private sector solutions for people, the working poor, and moving forward up to Medicare.
Mr. Reeves, the next question will start with you. What, if any, questions do you think are needed in the state's regulations of environment and recycling?
Well, we have a beautiful, beautiful state. We'll have lots of wonderful parks and lakes, and I think it's our God-given duty to continue to do our part in making sure we're taking care of those from a state level and making sure the resources are there to make sure we're keeping those clean, keeping the air clean, keeping the lakes clean, and just being good stewards with what's been given to us.
Ms. Jordan, same question. What, if any, changes do you think are needed in the state's regulations of the environment and recycling?
Rutherford County landfill takes trash from 26 counties. We've all had the benefit of the $1 million a year that adds to our budget, and that's been wonderful. However, the experts tell us that we're going to be at capacity between 4 and 8 years, and we have absolutely no exit plan. So things need to happen. Number one, those funds need to be now begun to be diverted into some kind of an exit plan. Number two, we obviously need to have a comprehensive recycling program. Number three, there needs to be a public education effort. All of those things together, this is going to take a regional coalition because this is far bigger than us. We also need to have those folks who are benefited from the landfill participate in the private sector for those folks who've benefited, and that's going to take work on many fronts to be able to accomplish that.
Jordan, the next question will begin with you. If elected, what will be your measure of success in office?
What a good question. The thing that I think I would like to choose as a measure of success is that we can legalize cannabis, and I'm going to tell you why, the reasons that I feel that way. First, we have the symptom reduction, the folks that are in pain that we don't want to put on these addictive and dangerous drugs. So we have diseases whose symptoms are responding favorably to cannabis that don't respond favorably to conventional drugs. The second is the business and tax revenue implications. States like Colorado and Washington have funded education initiatives, green spaces, and rehabilitation programs. The third is the application to our opioid addiction crisis. It certainly has an application there. And the last is criminal justice reform. African Americans are 4 to 8 times more likely to be prosecuted for cannabis-related charges.
Mr. Reeves, same question. If elected, what will be your measure of success in office?
It's a great question. So I don't know if I would tie it to any particular one issue. I've been telling people lately, here's what you can count on from me if I get elected. It's my 3 S's. Number one, I will be a statesman, and I'll make you proud of me, and I'll make sure I don't do things or say things to embarrass the district. Number two, I do want to be a man of substance. I don't plan on taking on multiple issues. I'd like to take a few things that I feel like my background and my capabilities and my passions really align with and really go after them, like the opiate. And the last thing, and I think this is important if you're going to be a state senator for this many people, is I want to have a servant's heart. and I want to provide an incredibly high level of service to the people in the district. You are the conduit to the state for individuals, for families, for businesses, for nonprofits, for the cities and the counties, and I just want to provide an incredibly high level of service. So statesmanship, substance, and service. If I do that in a good way, I'll be proud of the time I've spent there.
The next question will start with you again, Mr. Reeves. What would you say to newly eligible voters that would encourage them to vote?
Well, my son cast his very, very first vote on January 25th, 2018 for me. And whenever I'm talking to him and I'm talking to young people like him, I say this. I say things like, education equals jobs. So we've got to make sure that we're providing good education, and we've got to provide good opportunities for young people that are getting out of school. And not everybody needs to go to college. Some young people need to go into vocational schools. Some kids need to go into the military. Some kids may just simply need to plug into the private sector some way. So what I would tell young people is I want to make sure that we're creating the platform in our school systems so they're able to make the leap whenever they leave school to be able to have a good job in Tennessee, low taxes, good salary, be able to take care of their families.
Jordan, same question. What would you say to newly eligible voters to encourage them to vote?
I don't have to imagine what I would say to them. It has been such a humbling experience for me to have the number of young people come to talk to me about this election. In the last year and a half, we have all learned the lesson that democracy takes defending. Democracy takes involvement. And as I have talked to young people, I am so encouraged. I'm encouraged by their passion. I'm encouraged by their engagement. I'm encouraged by their drive. I'm encouraged by their innovation. And so this particular group of people, it gives me hope for the future, because when we worry about that and we worry about the next generation coming along, I will tell you, we have nothing to worry about. These young people are on fire to be part of the democratic process. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with this age group.
Okay, Ms. Jordan, we'll start with the next question with you. The top budget priorities for Tennessee are often identified as health, higher education, K-12 education, public safety, and transportation. In what order would you rank those priorities? It's 5, it's a lot. And what, if any, priority would you add to this list?
I think if I had to put one at the top, it would be health care. We have such a vested interest in keeping our citizenry healthy, and we have such an opportunity to do that without an impact in Tennessee's budget. It's an easy answer for me to say that the top priority is passing the Medicaid expansion. Education would probably come next. We have an opportunity there too. Our teachers haven't gotten a substantial raise in a number of years. They're working through a very difficult time. They have a difficult evaluation process, and we're over-testing our children. We need to revamp education. We need to put more resources into it. We need to show respect to our teachers with far more than flowery words. They need increase in benefits and an increase in wages. Then I would say infrastructure. We have economic and educational inequality in our rural areas when our folks don't have access to the internet, and that's a very high priority.
Mr. Reeves, same question. The top budget priorities for Tennessee are identified often as health, higher education, K-12 education, public safety, and transportation. In what order would you rank those priorities, and what, if any, priority would you add to that list?
I would go behind K-12. I think we focus on education first. I mean, if we provide an incredibly good education for our young people in the state, I think everything can be built on a tremendous education for our young people. I'd like to see us have some of the highest scores in the entire South. I mean, just across the board. I mean, we're known for Tennessee for a lot of things, faith and family and volunteer state, but I'd love to be the education state too. We're just putting out really, really smart kids. So I'd go after K-12 probably first, followed by health care, and then probably infrastructure. Those are the 3 things in order.
Now we'll move on to the last question. As a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes for this final question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Reeves. Would you be willing to set aside partisan loyalty to accomplish one of your priorities?
Yes, I would. So I'd like to make my closing statement. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters. Thanks again to everybody who attended tonight. I've been around Republican politics and just politics in general in Rutherford County my whole entire life. I've helped local candidates and state candidates and federal candidates, and I've always been on your side of the aisle here, helping candidates. And this is the first time I've ever run. And I think it's real important to understand as part of the selection process that me and my opponent, we truly do have there's a significant contrast between the two of us, and I think the voters need to take the time to really research that. We have different worldviews, I think we have different backgrounds, and I think we have different politics. I think you've seen some of that tonight. My worldview comes from my Christian faith. And my Christian faith serves as a moral compass, and it serves as a filter in how I look at so many things in the world. How I look at family, how I look at parenting, how I look at education and healthcare and immigration and diversity. My faith drives a lot of how I look at the world. My background, I mentioned to you, is very different. I'm a businessman, I'm a pharmacist, I've employed people my entire life, I've taken care of patients. And I also think my politics, I'm a conservative Republican, but I'm also a humanitarian. I believe in limited government, and I believe in low taxes. I'm pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. I believe in the Constitution, strong defense, and growing our economy. But I also want to make sure that we're looking at the human side of health care and immigration and education. I want to make sure to say this. I need your prayers. I need your advice. I need your support, and I need your vote. Early voting does start next week, and every single vote is going to count in this election, and I want to make sure to personally ask for it tonight. Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here, and God bless.
Jordan, you'll have the same question, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to answer this question with closing remarks. So the question again is, would you be willing to set aside party loyalty to accomplish one of your goals?
I've already had the opportunity to talk about what I do in my career. There is no moment where the emotions are higher than when you come into a room with folks that are trying to resolve a contract dispute, a juvenile victim offender program, or even figure out a parenting plan. Those skills of taking communication, compromise, and cooperation and coming up with a result is a unique skill set, and it's one that I would like to apply. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, to the moderator, to Shane, to the audience in attendance, and to the television audience in Marshall, Moore, Bedford, Lincoln, and Rutherford counties to listen tonight in this free marketplace of ideas. You've had the opportunity to hear both of the candidates' vision for District 14. Shane, in his own words, is a Trump Republican, committed to furthering Trump's agenda in Tennessee, and everything that means. If that's the direction that you think Tennessee is prepared to go, you have a clear choice in selecting Shane. If, however, you want a state senator who will represent everyone in a fair, equal, open, honest measure, a state senator who believes that we are stronger when we embrace diversity instead of fear it, a state senator who believes that our strength resides in our inclusiveness, who is moved by compassion from our fellow citizens, who wants to protect everyone's religious freedom, and who wants to build a Tennessee that works for everyone and not just the fortunate few, you too have a clear choice. My name is Gail Jordan, and I'm asking for your vote.
Again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters and Rutherford County, I want to thank both of our candidates for your participation today. I also want to recognize Brian Robertson, the Director of the Rutherford County Office of Information Technology, and Lee Harris, Communications Manager, for their cooperation in presenting this program on Government Channel 19 and making it available on the county website. I want to encourage all Rutherford County citizens to vote. Early voting begins February 21st and goes through March 8th. Election Day is March 13th. Please exercise this important right to determine who will be the next state senator for District 14. Now, let's close with a round of applause for our candidates.